let it happen, you know? So, did you hear that, M80?
Yeah.
Oh no, that's the 21 gun salute for Memorial Day.
Nice. Cheers.
European Repertory Company is at Broadway in Wellington. That place, the first play I was in was like the very first rehearsal, and I was playing someone like much older than me, like a Russian prostitute, alcoholic, like, you know, super old lady, out of her mind. And we were in rehearsal the first day, and everybody was acting their asses off, like really going for it, you know. And Yasin and Luda were directing it, and I was like, you know, I'm supposed to be in my bed, like passed out, and I was looking at everybody, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm in big trouble. I have nothing prepared. I have no idea how to approach this character. And we're on a break, and I'm like, so Yasin, are we supposed to be in character? And he's like, yeah, Dado, yeah. And I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna need some time here to get it together. But that practice is like, just get in there and like try something. Just try shit. You know, don't walk up, tippy toe up to your character. Like, just go at it. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot at ERC because it really helped me trust a lot of my instincts that I never had access to that, you know? So it really shaped me. I'm very lucky I got to spend that time with those people.
Again, and then I'm very lucky that I've had time to spend with you. It's like, because what you learned there, these experiences that you had influences the way that I was able to create. And then it was be like, oh yeah, I love working like this. I love being able to show up.
I love it. I love it. There is a deep.
That's what I'm trying to do with my students, is to give them that same opportunity that Yasin gave to you and that you gave to me. And it's like, we can create some really cool shit if we work this way.
Yes.
There is a bit of a legacy there.
Yes. And there's, you know.
I want to hear about how a Red Orchid happened.
Okay. So I don't take any credit. I was actually grieving the loss of ERC, which I was crushed. That was my home. You know, I'd done a lot of my formative work was at Mary Archie, but a lot of the middle work that made me who I am was at ERC. And I was so sad. And I had started directing plays at Red Orchid, and Guy just started asking me to be in that ensemble. He just started asking me, and I just couldn't agree. But he never quit asking. And then somewhere in the 2000s, I must have said yes, but it wasn't a very big deal. I don't even remember what year it was. But I am indebted to Guy Van Swearingen because he has curated an amazing ensemble of artists, and it's not an accident. It's very deliberate what he did and how he did it. I mean, now Kirsten is the artistic director and the process is a little different, but the way that was going back then and the way that it shaped was highly curatorial in Guy's mind. Mm-hmm. And Guy's mind is now kind of a hive of all of our minds, and that's how we proceed. And I just know I'm in very good company. Like, I'm in a group of artists that I trust their minds. I may not agree with them, but I trust their minds there's an acuity that we all get, you know, and it's not like a physical thing like Looking Glass has or anything like that. It's just the way the artist, you know, some of us are very physical, some of us are not physical. It's a brilliant amalgamation of humans, and I'm excited for the future. One of the stories I tell about directing is that the first play I directed, I was so scared to direct this goodbye scene of these men who'd been in Vietnam together, and I had no idea. I was just a little kid, like, how do I direct this scene? I didn't feel like I had any information or anything to contribute. So I bought them like a case of beer and a fifth of whiskey, and I left. Not because it was my big plan, but because I was scared. I was like, I don't know how to do this. So I just put all that up there and I left and I went for like a walk for like an hour and a half. And I came back and I was like, do the scene. And I never directed that scene.
You set the table. You gave them something to feast on, and then
Yeah.
stepped away.
And that's like, for a first time director, that was a huge lesson that I stumbled on myself, and I never forgot it. And
I think that's brilliant. That I see a lot of that. There's a lot of analysis in that.
Well, because I'm an actor, and I would like that, to have a scene approached that way, you know, instead of me the director trying to control, like, go stand there, you know, like, that's not a scene that should have any direction. You know, I maybe had some comments or some thoughts about it, but I don't think I ever really gave notes on that scene. And I'm glad I didn't.
I think it's these Mary Archie, European Theater Repertory Company, a Red Orchid. Now we have Trapdoor. You work with Trapdoor a lot.
I really appreciate Trapdoor, because they give you the best challenges, you know. But actually what happened at Trapdoor was one of the places where I was doing Alice in Bed by Susan Sontag. And that was like 2007, you know, and that's when people started saying to me, like, about grad school, and you should go to grad school. And I had no understanding of why that would be important. But somebody explained to me, they're like, you're never going to get to the top of these piles unless you have a terminal degree or something. And I was really turned off by that. And I looked at theater schools, and, you know, Carl Ferrano, who's been kind of a mentor of mine for over the years, on and off, he's like, you know, the crits here at in the visual arts department at University of Chicago are free, and they're open to the public. So you should go. And I was like, oh, why? And he's like, I don't know. I just think you'd like to see that. Mm-hmm. It's just artists talking about their work to their professors. So I went to one. We all went around. They were doing their crits. And then I didn't know Catherine Sullivan very well. I knew of her. And they're like, I said, my name Dado. And she's like, you're Dado? And I was like, yeah. She goes, she's a famous actor. And the way she said it, like, what is an actor in Chicago doing in this crit? And I was like, and then I proceeded for like 3 hours. They take each work, and the student talks, and the professors tear it down and break it up and unpack it and repack it. And it's excruciating. And I was hooked. And I started going to them. And then I was like, I don't want to study theater. I don't want to study theater. And then I wasn't expecting to get accepted, because when I went to my interview, I saw there were no people who had any interest in performance at all. It was all like introverted painters, sculptors, you know, digital artists. They don't talk. And in my interview was Pope Ellen Catherine, and they're like, are you sure you want to do this? Because, like, you know, we go off on these tangents, you know, we talk about like the color orange for hours. And I was like, yeah, I'll have a break. I would like a break, you know? And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it that they took me. And it was not a great fit. Like, I was messy, and I was all over. My studio was all over. Like, I never made any of the professors. I just left a trail everywhere I went. I had this shopping cart filled with my crap. But, you know, we made it work. And, what it did was it made me aware of my process. Like, it made me understand that directors are sculptors. We're sculpting the designs of the costume designer. That's an artist. A set designer, that's an artist, you know, and it's my job to sculpt it all. Durst is in there. Sometimes he's doing the set and the lights, you know. And then the great way I can sort of cap this for you is I was in a studio visit with Catherine Sullivan, and we were talking about, it was at the end of my first year, and we were talking about what I was going to do in the summer, and I was going to direct this play, Simpatico, Sam Shepard. And she's like, so what are you going to do? And I was like, well, I'm going to meet with my set designer and do this and this and this, and then we're going to put it together with this model. And she's like, wait, a set designer? And I was like, yeah. And there was this pause where her brain like disappeared and came back, and she was like, why do you need a set designer? And then I was like, oh,
Hmm.
she wasn't criticizing me. It was just something that she hadn't, like, as a maker of these brilliant fucked up operas and these crazy films she makes, she is the set designer. It would never cross her mind to have that. And I was like, okay. So then I got much more involved because it really made me trust my proprioception and my ability to understand spatial relationships in a room. And even though I'm not a set designer and I can't draw or draft or things like that, like for, to give to the TD, I have an opinion how I want it to look.
Yeah.
And now it has a lot more weight. Yeah. So that so it defined a lot of my practice, and it allowed me to accept that I don't have to be in this super commercialized. I mean, I want commercial work too, but I allowed me to really embrace that I want to be this experimental kind of force that moves work, like vacuum cleaner operas or Killing Game or plays no one wants to touch. I mean, Killing Game, come on, it's a mess. 17 scenes. They cut out the cannibal scene. Why did they do that? Just like plays no one ever wants to do. I want to do them. I think you're not going to see me Death of a Salesman by Dado. I'm not going to do that.
But Simpatico.
Yes, I'm not going to do, Buried Child. I mean, maybe someday, but like, I like that play, Simpatico. It's very flawed. It's very fucked up play. And I like those plays. I like plays that are messed up structure, because why are we always, I think that's very patriarchal to look for the perfect play and the perfect structure and the perfect, this works, and the perfect denouement. And like, that's boring. Like, I want to see plays that actually the climax happens too fast, and then the denouement is dragged out, or there's no, there's no central character or something. I want to find plays that are the process of the artist and go in that process with them. Mm-hmm. With Tennessee Williams, with The Mutilated, right? That plays beautiful scrap spiderweb of a play. It's barely a play, but it's filled with everything that he was so brilliant at. All those relationships, all the prototypes and archetypes of all those characters are in there. All that music is in there. All the weird Christmas carols that he wrote. And I was like, why wouldn't you do this every year? Yeah. I'm very comfortable with that now. Like, I'm much more comfortable with I'm generally uncomfortable as an artist, but I'm much more comfortable about that. Like, I understand the discomfort.
Just your standing in your experience in Chicago alone, in terms of looking around you, you have access to talent, designers, pedagogy. Would you want to be the head of a program? It's the fact that you have the skills, that you have the network of people, that you have the exercises, you have the syllabi, you have the experience in how to create, in terms of what to do. I give you a play, Dado, can you create this for me? You know how to do it, just like some people know how to play the piano. So you have it all. It would just be a matter of time. I think it's just a matter of you going, yeah, I want it. And then having a department that's smart enough to hire you.
To your question about, do I want my own department? Yeah, I do, because I have finally been able to like coalesce the pedagogy, I guess.
To piggyback on what I just asked you, would you be willing to move outside of Chicago to get this job? To head that program?
Great question. Yes and no. I mean, how far would I be willing to get from Chicago? Depends on the school. Like, if they're willing to support me and allow me to continue to make work in Chicago and travel, then we're having a conversation.
Right. Because you are also, you're a huge part of facility. You're a huge part of the Red Orchid.
Huge. And I have to make work. I have to keep making work. Like, I went down to Oklahoma City.
Stillwater, Oklahoma? I
was in Oklahoma City, whatever university, and I did a master class down there, and, the students were like, can you stay? Can you please stay? Like, can you stay? Because I guess a lot of the instructors don't stay because they want to work. And it's really hard to be a regional actor or a professional actor and live in the middle of Oklahoma. And but you know, a lot of those students come to Chicago, so that's exciting. That's really cool. But I don't know how remote I would be comfortable.
I feel you.
Would I be comfortable if I was in a small town? Like if I taught in Lawrence, Kansas, what's that university?
I don't know. I think it might be refreshing to you for the first year, or it might be like, I can't do this at all.
Do you like teaching in Georgia?
I love it. Young Harris College is beautiful.
Really?
There's, they love their Jesus up here.
How's that work? How's that work into theater?
Well, I had the great gift. I was teaching at Eastside Catholic before I got this, and I left the position because the Vatican released a document called Men and Women, He Created Them, God. And it was about gender in the classroom and how to handle that as an educator. And it was
That the one in Seattle?
This was in when I was working in Seattle, yeah. And the job was I loved the students. I loved creating with them.
I didn't know that that's what happened.
Well, that's what, nothing really happened other than the fact that it was a job. It was a good job with pros and cons. And they offered me a contract and I took it. The entire year, I felt like I was in the closet a bit. It was like, don't ask, don't tell. And I felt it with the students sometimes, hey, Mr. Weber, are you married? And I'd be like, I wouldn't answer their personal questions regardless. But I felt in the closet.
It's so interesting that the closet can be put upon you.
Well, yeah. And so once this document came out in June, I'd already decided to come back. I thought, okay, it could be a good year because now I've learned from some of the problems of just the dynamics of the job and the culture. But I felt that I could come back and possibly be of service. And then that document came out and I was like, holy shit.
How was the document put to you? Was it in your email or?
A friend of mine sent it to me. I was like, holy shit, have you read this? And I was like, no. And so I reached out to a couple priests in the area and some Jesuits in the area. And within that week of the document coming out in Indianapolis, I believe they fired a gay teacher, Brebeuf, I forget the name of the. So they fired, the archdiocese said, you need to fire this teacher. And the Jesuit school said, no, we're not going to do it. And then the archdiocese went to the other school and said, you need to fire your gay teacher because those two teachers were married. Yeah. And so the public school fired the teacher because they depended on their resources from the Vatican. And the Jesuits said, no. So it created this shitstorm all within a week of this document being released. And so I had a meeting with the administration. I said, we need to talk about this document, specifically what it means for me and what it means for the school. And the president and I outed myself in the meeting. I was like, well, without the hypotheticals, I'm homosexual. And the president said, well, David, if the board came to me and said, you need to fire David Weber because he's gay, I would quit. And then he said, but you're not getting married anytime soon, are you? And the room laughed. And I went, yeah, but wouldn't you want that for me? Wouldn't you want that for me? And so right there is when I made the decision that I was going to quit. And they were great. They said, we're going to make this really hard for you. We want you to stay. But I said, well, you don't know what that means. I can't walk down the halls feeling remotely comfortable in my own skin. And so I was like, I got to quit. Now I need a job. And so I thought about I just flooded Chicago and I flooded Georgia with resumes. And Young Harris College had an opening.
And they're Baptist?
They're Methodist.
Methodist.
Yeah. It's a liberal arts college, though.
Okay.
So they're pretty good. And because of what happened, I in the interview, I was explaining why to come back home. And so since day one, I've been pretty transparent about who I am and what I do, and it feels great.
Did you write this down?
Yeah, I wrote it down in my blog. I'm still trying to work on it to figure out how I can be a
It will be
better
years
therapist.
of processing, but it is fucked up.
It's pretty fucked up. And because of it, I'm just, for a while, I felt at odds within the Catholic Church, but I was raised within it, so I wanted it to be okay. Now I'm absolutely, it's an evil fucking organization. There's a lot of good people in it, but it's not a source of good.
I'm mortified. I can't, that is a crazy story you just told me about that meeting. That's like,
Yeah, it's like being in like the Stepford Wives, it's like,
yeah,
come on. And then,
you're not getting married anytime soon
yeah,
because then you
then
would
it's a
be
problem.
fired. You can work here as, you know,
Then it becomes a problem, then it becomes an issue, then it needs to
I
be,
mean, I'm upset that you even had to say, I am blah, blah, blah. I am a Martian. I am
right.
a homosexual. I am what,
Well, that's where it becomes interesting because then the thought was like, well, that's okay. I mean, that's not, it's not like you're going to, that has nothing to do with about what you do in the classroom. I'm like, well, it does kind of, because the students don't know, the students are craving role models. The students are craving opinion leaders. And it sucked. All I could be was Mr. Weber. I couldn't say, hey, listen, I'm gay, so that they can go, you are, so that they had someone to look up to.
it's cake for me. And I think that it sounds a little strange at first when academics hear it. They're like, cake, but I think it is actually very useful. And I have tested it out, and all my students know this is my practice. And I'm actually writing an acting book. And when I give the chapters to the students, they respond. Like I see it
Well,
in their work.
yes, it's, I mean,
So cool.
elements, ingredients. I don't know of any academic who would look at your system and have a problem with it.
When you say cake to a professor, they're like,
I instantly get it. They're ingredients. It's a process.
yeah. Do you
They're
know what it stands for?
they're
Do you know what
elements.
cake stands for? Should I say?
Say it.
So C is collections, because I believe objects are alive, and I won't go into that because I could talk for 5 more hours about objects are alive.
Mm-hmm.
A is for analysis, which is a lost art, which is what I teach. I really teach character analysis, and I teach it well, and I have a system, and it works great. And K is for kinesthesia, movement, because everything has to move in order to be viable. And E is for ensemble, which is just sort of like the cake of it all, right?
Right.
And cake is actually, I can apply it to teaching. I can apply it to directing. I apply it to acting. I apply it to visual art. It's in everything I do. And I can speak to my students in those terms, and they get it. Like they understand, and I want, so that's my practice. And it's very playful, but it has to be, strenuous, and it has to be, like it's, I could write and talk about cake forever.
That has taken years of your research and experience to be able to boil it down into that. And then to be able to give to the students and say, this is my practice. And for them to be able to absorb and go, I can learn this way or not. I
love analysis, and I don't, like, out of all the different processes I've been exposed to over the years, that one has really stuck with me. Like that's the one that I always go back to when I'm stuck. Mm-hmm. And when I'm stuck with an actor, that's what I go back to. And it's very, very productive. But it's productive in a way that is physical and mental, intellectual. So I just find it's like really useful. And it's not taught in schools the way like now schools focus, in like a Meisner based or something, or improv, and they kind of leave analysis out. And I think analysis is, sometimes Sometimes you're gonna move out of phases with Meisner.
I agree with you on the analysis. I believe that analysis is active.
It is active.
You know
That's the way I was taught it. I wasn't taught it intellectually. I was taught it actively.
Me too. Once I understand what the event is, I can figure out what to do to make that happen.
Right.
What it looks like and what it sounds like, and then do that.
It's kind of cool to hear people talk about their practices.
I think people are gonna love the shit out of everything you say. I love it. Yeah. You're done. You're off the hook. We got everything.
Love you.
Love you
Let
too.
me know if you need anything.
I will.
Okay, bye.
Bye.